Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about character encoding and how to read and write text file in Python. So let's get started. This is the agenda of today's video. First, I will give a very brief introduction on character encoding. This introduction will be extremely brief. We just need to know what it is. I'm not going to talk about too much details, so I'll probably just spend 2 to 3 minutes on this. And then we will talk about what is the Python syntax for read and write a text file. Then we will have a walkthrough of the raw data, which is our Harry Potter novel. And lastly, we will demonstrate some code in Jupyter Notebook. As a side note, the code in this video is available in GitHub. Let's start with character encoding. So what is character encoding? Put simply, it is a standard that maps character to a binary code. As we all know that computer only recognize either 0 or 1. So if we want to store a character inside a computer, we need to somehow convert them into a binary digit, or sometimes called code units. So ASCII, American Standard Code for Information Interchange, is one of those standards. In ASCII, lowercase letter a corresponds to 011000001. There is also a binary digit that corresponds to uppercase A. Similarly, there is a binary code for lowercase p and uppercase p. It also has mappings for some simple punctuations such as question marks or space. However, ASCII only has 128 character mappings, which means that the number of mappings are limited. So ASCII doesn't have a mapping for letters with accent. It doesn't have mappings for Greek letters. It doesn't have mappings for emojis. It doesn't have mappings for foreign characters. In order to have those mappings, people develop other standards. One of the most commonly used standards is called Unicode. So before we jump into Unicode, I want to mention one last thing, which is code point. Code point is simply another abstraction between characters and code unit. So each character has a corresponding code point, and it also has a corresponding code unit. For our purposes, we just need to know that it exists. I'm not going to talk about too much detail on that. Now let's talk about another standard, which is Unicode. Unicode is another character encoding standard. Unlike ASCII, Unicode actually has more than one encoding methods, which are UTF-8, UTF-16, and UTF-32, with UTF-8 being the most commonly used encoding. So for UTF-8, again, we have mappings for lowercase and uppercase alphabet. We have mappings for simple punctuations like question mark and space. But we also have mappings for letters with accent, letters with Greek letters, letters with emoji, and letters with foreign languages. It also has much more. So in this series, we will be using UTF-8 since it is the most commonly used encoding method. Now let's look at the raw data together. I have opened the Harry Potter notebook in a text file over here on the bottom right. So the first observation is that the contents are broken into lines, which are very straightforward. And then the second observation is that the chapter name is placed right at the beginning of each chapter. So for example, in the first chapter, The Boy Who Lived, the chapter name is placed right at the beginning of the first chapter. The second chapter, The Vanishing Glass, the chapter name is again placed right at the beginning of the second chapter. The third observation is that the book names are interspersed among the book contents, which means that every few lines you will see a book name that insert into the contents. So for example, the first book is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and at the end of the book name there will always be J.K. Rowling. And then the fourth observation is that at the end of each book there is a section for chapter names. It starts with document outline. So let me show you what that is. If we search for document, you'll see that at the end of the first book there is a section called document outline, and within these sections we have list all the chapter names of the book. They are all capitalized. This is true except the very last capitalized line, which is the word's birthday. So this word's birthday is actually the first chapter of the second book. The very last capitalized text in the section is the first chapter of the next book. This is true except for book number 7. Of course, because we do not have a chapter for book number 8. So 19 years later, this will be the last chapter of book 7. Okay, one last thing before we jump into the code. I want to show you that every time you save your text file, you will need to enter the file name, but you can also specify the encoding methods of your file. So UTF-8 is the default encoding method, which is the one we will be using through this entire series. Now we are ready to look some code. First, let's read the text file, which I named Harry Potter ebook 1-7.txt. Because this is a reading mode, so the mode will be a letter R. Encoding will be UTF-8. Let's read the lines and then save the output into these lists, which I call it lines. If we print it out, you can see that these lines is actually a list, and then inside the list, each element is a line of our novel. You can also check how many lines are there in this book, and you can also see what's the content for a specific line. So index 2278 actually means that we are reading lines 2279. Okay, one thing you can notice is that at the end of each line there is a \n. What that means is it is a special character for new line in Python. So I have some example over here. Let's say we are having a string which says Johnny loves reading Harry Potter, and then after that we are having the same thing, but this time let's insert a \n within the string. As you can see, Johnny loves reading becomes the first line, and then Harry Potter becomes the second line. Now if we insert a \, over here inside Johnny, what will happen is Python will recognize this \n as a new line. So Joe will becomes the first line, and then Nee loves reading Harry Potter becomes the second line. If you want to print out the \, and then escape the special character recognitions, you just need to type 2 \s to escape. So I type 2 \s here, then the output become Joe \Nee loves reading Harry Potter. Okay, let's process our raw data a little bit, because from our observations we know that every few lines there is a book names that inserted into the contents, and we don't want that. We want to remove all the book names. We also know that at the end of every book names there is a word J.K. Rowling. So let's check how many lines with J.K. Rowling's are there in our raw data. I first create an empty list which I called lines with J.K. Rowling, and then I start iterate through this object. If J.K. Rowling exists, then I'm going to append that. And if I print out the result, you can see that every line is a book name that ended with J.K. Rowling. We can also check how many lines that are book names. In this case, we have almost 2600 lines of book names. Now let's create another list. This time we are going to name it lines without J.K. Rowling. So we are going to append the line only if J.K. Rowling is not inside the line. Okay. Now we successfully remove all the book names. We are ready to write this list into another file, which I called Harry Potter ebook 1-7 book titles removed. Because we are in a writing mode, so the mode will be a single letter W. Encoding is the same UTF-8. For lines inside lines without JK Rowling, we are going to read each line into the text file. Okay, this is it for this video. I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, please like and subscribe, and let me know what you think and how I can improve. Other than that, I will see you in my next video. Thank you.